Hey everyone, this is Genesis here, and I'm coming at you today with something a little bit different than Vcom AI or Degeneration or even bunnies. So this is a project that I've kind of been thinking about for a while. I've been excited to do, and I was thinking, hey, with Vcom AI 2.8 released, I might have to do like a little bit of bug fixing here and there, but I think it should be overall fairly straightforward and complete. So I want to do something else for a little while. Well, so it got me thinking about a project I want to do for a while, and I actually did some work on it. So I'm going to kind of show you what I did. So here's the concept of what I want to do. And this map is called Dissension. So just another synonym for conflict. So this is, I'm thinking of I want you to imagine a capture the island game. And in this capture the island game, it is the players don't get, think of warfare when it was good, not the warfare when it's bad, but the good warfare. But now take out any players being the commanders, and it's going to be pure AI based. And I want to design really competent AI commanders, and AI commanders are that I've seen so far have just been simply research this or attack the closest location, and they haven't really have any much thought behind them. And not only I didn't want it to be just a simple capture the towns. I wanted to have resource management. I wanted the AI to consider resources they needed when attacking, and I didn't want to have just be combat in the towns. I wanted to be combat all over the island. I wanted to be full blown, like fighting everywhere. Not obviously not everywhere at once, but literally just everywhere AI needs resources, they will go and get those resources. They'll build up an army. They will try to attempt to crush each other. So pretty much my goal is to design two AI. Their goals will eventually be to kill each other. It's their ultimate goal, but they need to obtain resources and an army to do so. And eventually the players will be able to influence other side, of course, but right now I'm just going to focus on designing AI that will purely be able to fight each other on a map and have it be amusing to watch. It would be awesome. So let me show the work I have done already. So let me pull up this file here. So what we have here, and I actually will pull up the file itself. The first thing I decided to do is I need to figure out where all the towns are. And I want this to be all automatic. I don't want to have anything placed manually. On this map, all I have is one unit, and that's me, placed in the mission file. The rest needs to be all done via commands and scripts and whatever, to the point where I could pretty much put this in a mod and you can load it up with any map. Okay, so first thing I need to do is I need to capture the towns. I need to figure where all the towns and cities are and all that stuff. So I came up with a script that I actually why is this is not set up with my language. Okay, there we go. So this script goes ahead and let's figure this out here. So this is the script that I made. It's a little long. I'm going to kind of go through it to kind of quickly explain what it does, just so you kind of are aware, and then I'll show you what it does. So this right here finds the towns, populates them, and gives them certain attributes. We'll just go through it. So this first command here, this literally just finds the center of the world. Okay, so at the center of the world, I create a marker right in the center of the world. Okay, and it's just an empty marker. I create that marker because then I'm thinking this is kind of like temporary right now. I'm thinking of saving that marker permanently so that I always can reference it. Right now it's just local. I don't really care, but I might just make that a global variable. Okay, so I create a marker to be referenced later. This marker is in the center of the world, and the center of the world is defined as whatever is in the config file of the world. So whoever created that world, that island, they decide where the center is. This is not always the best position, okay, but it doesn't really matter as much. Okay, so from the center of that marker, I want to tell the game that I want to name locals, name villages, cities, and city capital. And this is I put them all in an array so I can have them ready. And this is me defining all my variables that I need. I know I'm going to need a town array, a town count, the number of towns there are, an independent controlled, blue for controlled, and op for controlled array, flagpole array, small town array, medium town array, and large town array. Okay, the flagpoles are just going to be spawning in every city to kind of mark the center. Okay, so what I do then is, I'm sure there's a better way to complete this, but what I do is for you can see what I do initially is I run this command right here, that nearest locations. It gets that position of that marker we talked about earlier, the center of the world, and in a 30,000 radius it looks for any villages, and with every village that it finds, okay, so this huge block of text right here, bam, this is every village it finds, it does this code to it in this big block of text that I highlighted. What it does is it counts the town, adds 1 to the counter of town count. So if you find 1, that moves from 0 to 1, and it just keeps adding up. It gets the position, and then it does an interesting check here. Okay, so this check right here, this big block of annoying code, that I'm sure there's a way to optimize this. I'm not sure. It's not a huge deal because this only runs once ever at the beginning of the mission. So this does a check to the left, to the right, 1 check to the the top, the left. Oh, sorry, this has 5 checks. 1 in the center, 1 on the left, 1 on the right, 1 on the top, and 1 on the bottom of a square of this town. Okay, and so this is of the town, and it tries to see if there's any surface is water. If the town is mostly in water, then it will exit. It won't be counted as a town. So the reason why I do this is sometimes there's certain locations that Bohemia has decided there was a town when it really was a rock surrounded by water, and I don't know why. So this is a little check to make sure to get rid of those little things that may not really be towns that I want to kind of get rid of, because towns tend to have some form of land around them. So that's why. So if there is indeed an actual town, it will spawn in a sign that I use in the middle of the town. It creates a marker, a white dot right in the middle of the town. Okay, and it sets the set this up here. Okay, and then it creates the text and creates the circle of it in the text around this array. And so what it does is now it compiles all that array into one giant array and shoves it into the flagpole array, puts it in the new town, every town starting off as independent controlled, and puts it into all these arrays. Okay, and then that giant confusing process I just talked about gets repeated for cities and capitals. Excuse me, sorry. It's a little late, I'm tired. So what I'm doing is just iterating, going through this map. I'm looking at, but essentially what I'm doing is I'm looking at Katkula here. I'm going, okay, is there land here? Is there land here? Is land here? Is land here? There's enough land, so therefore this counts. Okay, and that's essentially what I'm doing, and it puts all the important information about that town now into an array. So I do that for everything. And these arrays are something that are public, or they're global, so I can grab them and edit them and use them whenever I need to. So let's go ahead and run this command, and you can kind of see it in action. So what it actually looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and just run a call compile on it, and you can see that it quickly went around and populated. And now an interesting thing here, if you look at Belfort, interesting side effect of that water check, you can see how it came here. This is wherever the name is the center of the town. Okay, my script looked to the left at a certain distance, saw water, looked to the right, saw water, looked to the bottom, saw more water, and looked up and it saw land, but then it looked in the center and then it saw more water. That's 4 waters. That's enough to mark this as not a town. And you look over here, something like this, like why didn't this happen? You look to the left, water, bottom, water, top, water. Here should be water, and here is land. So why did this one count as a town? I have a feeling that it went up 200 here, and it hit the shore right here. And so this got marked as land, and this got marked as land. And these are, this here, here, and here was water. But since there's 2 hits of land, it's just enough to catch it. Belfort didn't have that comfort. There's no way it's hitting any land. So that's an interesting little catch there. And yeah, look at that. So you can see we generated these towns. That's fantastic. So we're able to find all the towns, and now we can't do anything with these towns yet. Can't do anything with the towns because they're just there, available to automatically identify towns, and as long as any island does anything similar, then we're good. It'll be able to do it in almost any island. Oh, here's another issue too. Lacoro didn't get detected. That's okay. So what I want to be able to do is now, as I said, I want to do more than just towns, because I can really focus the combat, which is okay, but I need other ways to fight in these other areas all over the world with more interesting things. Like I want to fight over this Red Springs surface mine. That's really cool. I want to fight over the banana plantations. Anything to keep it interesting. So I thought of a way to do that, and that's actually from an old friend. I had this great, fantastic idea, and I looked at his code, I borrowed it, and I kind of changed it up and applied it to this. So what I wanted to do is every kilometer, this little grid here, has a resource. And it'll get randomized each time you play. And they have to capture that territory, fight over it to get that resource, like on a timer or whatever. So I was looking at that and I'm like, okay. Let's go ahead and make a script up. And this script is a little bit more, I'm going to say, oops. Let me mix it with this. The script is a little bit more complicated and a little bit more messy. So I'm going to go through it quickly. The script here takes the size of the world, okay, and then it does a check to make sure that it has some size. If this isn't defined for some reason, say the world is a mod add-on world and is poorly made, doesn't have a defined size, then it tries to give it one that is pretty common. Okay, then it takes that size of the world, so typically 30720. On this world, I don't know what the size is, but say it takes the size, we'll just say it's 30720, so 30,000. It takes that and divides it by 1,000 to break it down into 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer chunks. So these little chunks here. So with that total length, it rounds the number. Okay. And then we go ahead and define the starting position. So where we want to start, this is just a simple coordinate, 500, 500, 0, which is like up here somewhere of the coordinate. Actually, sorry, is that down here maybe? I don't remember, maybe down here. I think this is like 0, 0, 0 right here. So at any point, we define our variables here because it's just the way I like to do it. And then what this does is it goes through the entire map and it generates the entire grid. It lays down marker after marker after marker in 500 increments going through. And then it generates all the rest. So it generates one layer. So what it does is it comes in and it generates one layer across here of markers, and then it takes those markers and then pushes them up and just keeps duplicating them up and up and up and up. So until the entire map is covered. And there's just some fancy formulas in there for that. Okay, and then once it does that, it goes through, and remember that water check they did for the towns? Well, it also does that for each marker. So what I wanted to do was, I don't want to have resources in the water, and that can be, the AI just don't handle that well, and I need to come up with more creative ways to get from island to island, and more creative solutions. So, got to figure that out, and that's going to be really tricky, but we're going to try our best. But anyway, I didn't want water. That's enough of a challenge. I need water getting in the way. So, trying to figure that out. I decided I just would separate. I want land only. I want resources only spawn on land. And I can put the water and all that in a separate grid, a separate array if I need to use it for any reason. So this goes through and does a water check. Now this one's a lot more strict. If it hits more than, if it hits 2 water spots, it considers it a water territory and removes it. Now, it does come up with a lot of land. Since I'm working in kilometer by kilometer chunks here, you will get some weird shapes and designs, but I prefer it to be mostly lands. It makes it easier for the AI to path to, so that's why I do that. And I'm gonna show you this once it all builds. I'll show you what it looks like step by step. So once it generates the water map and the resource map, it puts them in arrays, publics them, sends them out. Okay, now here comes the actual more fun stuff. We generate some random resources. So we have cash, power, oil, and just materials. These are resources I plan on having the AI utilize in some way or another. Okay, so what it does now is goes to every land block, and it assigns it a random resource and a random amount. Okay, every time the mission starts. Okay, and it does that and then once it does it for every tile, it goes back to every town. And I want the towns to do more than just being goals to capture. Every town will give you, say, every grid will give you only one random resource. Every town gives you all 4, but in a random amount. So each town can be worth fighting. And right now I have it set up where it doesn't matter the size of the town. Some towns are more valuable than others, just by randomizing it. So that was a lot. We're going to go ahead and run it so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. And see how I got it looking. So there you go. So you can see just what I said. We have oil 13, oil 1 here, oil 21, 18. So this island right here has a lot of oil resource, and it has some power resource. And we can click, you can see how I had actually tasks for the towns. So I like the markers for these. So you can kind of really quickly see, kind of browse around to see where all the resources are. It's not too cluttered. It's a lot of stuff going on. It's busy, but it's not super cluttered. Okay, and for the towns, I don't want to have 4 markers in here, spread out. It's just too cluttered. So I use the tasks, and all I do is the tasks pull in the town name. So as it goes from town to town, it pulls in the town name that I saved in an array, and you can click on it. You can see each of them gets assigned a random variables right here. You can see easily in the map, cash 30, power 23. You can easily see. Click on it. You can click on it. You can even assign this to yourself if you want to not forget which one you wanted to attack. And you can go over here and assign this one to yourself if you want to keep jumping. You can see that each one has different values as I click around, and so that way it really helps kind of shape it up. And you can easier see, like, even the town names. You can zoom way out and kind of see these towns a little bit easier. And so I kind of like that. It kind of looks nice, and I'm happy about that. So if I were to play this, I could say, like, okay, say I spawned an AI here, and they would get cash 2 maybe 2 every, I don't know, minute. And then what I want, this is my dream, is what I'm going to try to do, say the AI needs 20, they need cash and materials to just get basic troops. So the AI, I want the AI to spawn here, and he goes, shit, I need to get troops to attack a town. And he looks at the towns and he goes, okay, this town has 30, 23, 29, 20. It's actually a really powerful town. I'm just going to go for that town. But if it's early on in the game, I want to be like, shit, I want each town to have, maybe I'm going to have another variable hidden in here. Maybe it's some variable that is multiply of this. The stronger the town is in count, the more powerful the defenses are. Or maybe you'll do something like that. So maybe the AI looks at this town and goes, this is a strong town, I want that town, but it's too strong for me to take right now. So it decides to go for the materials 28 over here, which these will always have the same number of people protecting it, which is probably anything. So of course it'll start with a few troops, it'll send them over here to cap this area. And that'll be that, and they'll cap it. And the AI goes, okay, now I'm getting 28 materials, now I can recruit more troops. I can buy extra troops. So it's going to be kind of like an RTS. Their troops don't just infinitely respawn. They have to constantly replenish them with more AI troops and send them out, or players eventually. So, and I'm imagining for players to give them commands. The players don't have to follow, but it would be letting the players know what the AI is thinking. So that would be kind of cool, have like a dialogue back and forth. So here's the materials, and then it gets that, and now they decide, okay, now maybe I want to get this weaker town up here, so it sets up an assault, and it just kind of spreads based on what it thinks is best. And maybe it does multiple targets. We'll see. I might have it only thinking at one target at once. Maybe we'll see how that gets. Get kind of complicated. So that's the basic idea of it. So I want to show you how the grid generated and stuff like that. So what it did first is, I think you can just do it this way. Alright, here's the grid I was talking about. Now this looks like one giant marker. It's actually a whole bunch of 1 kilometer, 1 kilometer grids generated. And this is the point. It starts, actually, I believe it starts down here. So it generates across, then it builds up. And you know, see, it's not perfect, but it gets everything that I need it to get. So, awesome. So it creates a grid like this first. So it just covers the map in a grid based on its size and, you know, rough estimates of how big it needs to be. And then when it does, it goes through, and it, what I'm going to go ahead, it goes through and finds all the ones that are in water, and it separates them. Okay. And it removes them from that array, and you get something that looks like this. So now it more aggressively removed territories that have land on there, just because, you know, this apparently cancels water right here. I want to make sure it's on land AI can reach it. So I cut off the edges, and these little islands like this don't generate those resources, but they have, no one has a town on it. And then you kind of, and then once it does that, it knows where it can generate random resources. So imagine a world that has, that's mostly land. You're gonna have a lot of resources spread out throughout. So this will be really interesting. And then once it does that, it generates that. It goes, it knows where it can put shit, and then it goes ahead and hides that array too. And we can do things like, well, maybe I want to interact with the water, and I can go ahead and just bring the water array back. Whoops, I think I did the complete array by accident. Let me fix that. Boop. Boop. I don't know if I can copy this. Well, it just brings it back like that, and I can see where it's considered water. And of course it's not perfect, but I can do a lot of interesting things with this. And say if I wanted to spawn something in the water, I can just pull this array and pick a random square now, and I could even do like, if I wanted to make sure it was in the water, like say if I wanted to pick a random water square, since this cancels water up here, I can pick this and do a check, and, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then if anything comes up with land, then it goes into the next one, and it keeps going until it finds one that is pure water. So that's the basic system I got, and the reason for this, if you wonder why the hell does this shit matter, it is because it is identifying. I have to put everything into an array, everything into a list, everything needs to be counted and sorted so the AI can know where their targets are. And if you don't know much about designing AI, that is fine, because you have to understand that, you know, we as humans can look at this shit and go, okay, so this town may be valuable, and this town may be valuable, and over here might be valuable, and maybe I want to create like a defense over here. But if I don't create markers, like, the AI don't see the territory, they don't see the way the land's laid out, they don't see, you know, what would be good against other AI in terms of strategy. They just know what they're programmed to see. So I'm getting all the goals that the AI are programmed to see, and I'm having, if I want to have it complex, I need to have a complex system that has to take a lot of things into account, as well being smart and how it decides to attack the world. And so a lot of resources requires a pretty smart AI in terms of attacking. So that's the goal. So the goal is going to be capture the island with a whole bunch of resource focus. And what's going to happen is AI will slowly spread, and I actually want to have, like, say it's blue for over here, and they take this whole grid and will light up blue. And as they take territories, you'll start to see blue moving across the map, which would be really, really cool. So I'm going to be pretty excited about to get that. Like, you know, each of these will turn, the circle will turn blue once they own it. And you know, I don't think there's going to be a fog of war, really. I'm trying to think how that's going to happen. I think the AI are just going to know where each other are initially, and, you know, this time frame it's set in, it makes sense. They don't have access to that, and just gameplay wise, they won't be able to know exactly where the bases are, and they can kind of take a good guess. But you know, we'll figure out how that works later. Because maybe I'll have the AI have like a mobile HQ that they move around to better spots when they deem it necessary. So that is a rough idea. I think this video has already taken way too long, but I'm kind of actually excited about this because I have a good base. Now the hardest part is going to be designing the AI, and I'm going to start simple and just keep building onto it. And I'm going to make another video, I think, just so I can kind of work it out with this kind of free time I have at the moment. I'm just going to hammer it out, and I'm going to make a video when I have suitable progress that is more interesting to look at. So I will end it here. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.